porpoise to a certain depth. The barge that's inside could float out. You could float in with a barge or a tugboat or other vessel to work on the bottom. You pump it out, it all comes up, and that's how you work on the bottom. And then coming up to Stevens Institute. It's a scientific institute, and I don't know the history of Stevens. Do you know that
a little bit? But just going back to Maxwell for a second, where the plant was, there used to be a big neon sign on the old plant, which was pulled down in '93. It used to flash over good to the last drop. Maxwell House, and had a drip coming out of an electric cup. I met a man who was there in 1939 when they opened the factory, and the first night in front of all the dignitaries, they switched the sign on. And you know what happened? The drip went up in the cup instead of down. They had to rewire the sign the next day. Stevens was built by the Stevens family, and there used to be what they call the Stevens Castle. It was a manor house, and up on the top. It's a very fine engineering school, and I used to sit up at the top. It's like a little bit of the country in Hoboken, and watch the great liners. And of course, very renowned today, very successful. And this is Frank Sinatra Drive. It was here that they filmed On the Waterfront, famous 1954 movie with Marlon Brando and Carl Malden, and of course they always big all of the Hoboken waterfront as wonderful park space, apartments. They have a W hotel in Hoboken. You can't imagine that. On River Street was the greatest number of bars in the world, 300 bars in 4 blocks, all frequented by seamen and longshoremen in the rough days of Hoboken. Mothers told children, don't go near the docks, it's too Hoboken's new landscape. And to give, bars are all pulled down in the 60s, all gone, replaced. My parents bought a brownstone in Hoboken, those nice 3-story things, for $11,000 in 1964. We sold it for $40,000 10 years later, and last year it sold for $2.5 million. So Hoboken has changed a lot in these last 40 years. Imagine if we stayed in the 70s, Hoboken was on the skids, it was finished. People were packing up like the reverse of Ellis Island and moving out. And my mother said, the only people here now are those New Yorkers, those real people. Well, little did she know that things have changed. But here we go. Fabulous how Hoboken has developed. 2 big office buildings, and coming up, you'll see it, is the fabulous Lackawanna railway station. Built in 1905, beautifully restored. The original tower, the clock tower, was pulled down in 1950. It was structurally unsound and demolished. Well, the redevelopment people went to Italy, had it copied, sent it over in sections, and now they have the tower back, just like it used to be. Looks great. That was the largest copper-faced structure of its kind in the world. Now back in full use. It's had a $500 million facelift, and I think they've even put the Erie Lackawanna sign on, even though Erie Lackawanna is long gone. These, by the way, used to be the German liner piers back before World War I, where the greatest liners in the world docked over in Hoboken, and thus a big German colony. And when World War I came, in a miscalculation, the Germans left some of their liners right in Hoboken, and the Americans eventually seized them. The ships carried soldiers to fight the Germans in World War I on the very ships the Germans had built in the first place. One of the ironies of history. But look at Lackawanna Terminal.
The way that worked, and there's another terminal further south in Jersey, is the railroads on the other side came in and terminated there. There was no tunnel into the city at that time for rail. So the railroad, passenger railroad, ended, and people got off the railroad, and they went onto ferry boats, and they went into the city. They crossed over the river. That's the way it was. And now it's similar now a little bit, but not quite the same. Path trains go under there, and there's also tunnels to Penn Station.